Yoo-hoo and hi. I am back once again with a quick tip to help you get better at what you do, which is cinematography and the study of light, how light works, how light acts, and how light looks, and what you can do to manipulate it and change it and work with it. So my tip is to take pictures. That's the simple bottom line. And it's to take pictures of everything around you. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what time it is. I got too much haze in the air again, but I don't have anybody here to help me mix it around, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But I started taking pictures. Everybody takes pictures, but what I mean is I started taking pictures more consciously with my phone. Just walking around, walking through a park, and maybe it's a humid day and the sunlight's coming through a tree, and when it comes through the leaves, it's dappled, and it comes through the humidity, and you see streaks of light in it. And I found that when I started looking for pictures to take of lighting, I started to notice more. And what I also did was when I took those pictures, I studied them and I said, what makes this picture good? What makes the lighting in this picture good? How can I recreate this lighting? That's a really important part of this. So I'd like to start just by showing you some pictures that I've taken, where again, I was just walking through life and I happened into a scene and the light was amazing. And I'm going to start with this one. This was actually at Carnegie Hall in New York City, where I was part of a team that was hired to film some performances. And this is before the performance started, and we were just checking cameras for color bounce and exposure. And my colleague walked over to the far end of the balcony area, and I saw the lights beaming up at her and creating these incredible shadows. And I was just struck because I'd started to, this was early on, and I was starting to think about how light and shadow mix and how different lights do different kinds of shadows. And just to see this really popped out at me. So I took a picture, and this is one I always go back to, and I think about early in my career, and I think about how this picture affected me. This next one is a picture of my dog, kind of very similar to the one we just looked at from Carnegie Hall, with the same kind of lighting. His name is Ruxin. He's named after a character in a TV show called The League. This was a picture where I walked in the front door, and thank God he's very lethargic because I walked in and he didn't move and I was able to take this picture. But I'd opened our outside door, and there was an inside door made of glass, and the sunlight was coming in through that glass door and hitting our shiny wood floor and bouncing right up the stairs at him. And this is really beautiful. You just see the contrast between the light on him and the dark areas. And it's almost a noir look. It's kind of why I just kind of went black and white with it. But he looks ominous. Look at that shadow behind him. The shadow of his ears up there. The light just glancing off the front pieces of all those stairs. And it just makes a really, really beautiful picture. Next is another dog picture. This is my sister's dog. And here he is just lazing on the back of the couch. Yeah, it's kind of dusk, early dusk. And so there's a very, very soft light coming in. I believe it was cloudy as well. So just a very, very soft light from outside coming in and hitting the far side of his face. Really separates him from the background. And I love that picture of him. Next is another picture of Ruxin. And I happened to look up, and again, the sun was coming through the front of the house and hitting him exactly. And by exposing for Ruxin, it's not that he's extra bright, but he's the brightest thing there. Your eye is drawn towards him, right? He is the brightest thing in here. So exposing for him took the lighting down in other areas. So you have these beautiful, rich shadows. But also look at the door in the back. That's a closet door with the lattice work, the crisscross pattern on it. And look how there's some filtered light coming in. I don't know, maybe hitting our bed. Maybe the bed's in there and kind of throwing some light up on there. And also hitting the door to the left of Ruxin. So the entire scene's not dark. You have some light in the background, which is beautiful, and just kind of showing us what's in those rooms. And then Ruxin is like the star of the show. Okay, this guy was a shorehand. I think that's what you call it. He worked on a boat that went between Greek islands. And, he's the guy that works on the ropes and, makes sure that the boat's tethered to the land and stuff like that. And here he is in one of his downtimes because he gets to enjoy the ride to the island, the next island. He has his coffee and a cigarette. And I thought, what a really just a great portrait of this guy, you know, relaxing and taking some downtime. The sun coming and hitting him from kind of like from the very side. He's got the hat on it. It kind of covers his face and makes shadow there. And to me, that's like really mysterious. And just ties everything together. Yeah, I just really like that picture. And again, that's just something that I noticed on the fly. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep your eyes open. Now, I will say one thing. I have a terrible habit. I really need to stop this. But I have a terrible habit of sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and they're standing in incredible light, you know, like golden hour or I don't know, next to a window or whatever, and they have this amazing light on their face, and I'm sitting there studying it, and they're talking to me, and I kind of see their mouth move, but my head is like somewhere else completely, you know, thinking about the lighting. As I have to get better at that. All right, back to the pictures. Okay, so talk about taking a picture anywhere at any time. My father and I were going out to dinner, and this is a Cracker Barrel. And I love this. It almost looks kind of Old West saloony to me, kind of. And I went black and white with it because that really worked. But for the most part, I exposed for the highlights. Now, the bulb closest to me on the ceiling, that's a little blown out. But if I had exposed for that correctly, meaning it's not blown out, everything would have been incredibly dark. You wouldn't see anything in the shadows, right? So for the most part, the highlights are correctly exposed. And I just love the way they light up. If you squint, you'll see that they really light up that walkway and then just kind of glance. There's light glancing off other things and creating texture in the shadows. I don't have much else to say about that except that it's a Cracker Barrel, and to me, what a cool picture. And I also want to say this as you're looking at these, like I'm not saying that these pictures are incredible artistic masterpieces, but I think to me, all of them have really incredible light value, you know, contrasts. And we're going to talk about some colors coming up in the next couple of pictures here and how colors work together. So, you know, hey man, if you don't like these pictures, that's cool, but try to take the less, you know what I mean? Okay, Subway. Wow. You know, this is a picture where I think if I didn't know about exposure and I tried to take this picture, the camera would probably lift the shadows so that you could see them. And that means that the lighting on top would have been blown out completely and just would have been a flat kind of boring picture. But because I exposed for the lighting as much as I could while still retaining you know, enough light to see into the shadows, meaning the lights are a little overexposed, but they're not terrible. You know, they're not blowing out completely. But you get this just great, like, look at that shine on the floor, you know, from the lights. And look at the colors. And we're going to talk about colors. See, the ground is like this, I don't know, like a gunmetal bluish, grayish kind of thing. The people are wearing silver, gray, and black. And then you have splashes of colors on the left. And it's just a really cool scene. And the colors all kind of tie everything together, you know, to me. So that's another thing to think about when you're taking these pictures. Think about the colors in the scene and how do colors complement each other. So I think that's going to be more apparent in this picture. Again, this is Ruxin. And I'm not going to say much about the light. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. I exposed for the sunlight coming in, meaning the sunlight's not blown out. It's perfect. And then you get all these incredible shadows that really make the scene, give the scene some depth and some beauty. But I want to point out the colors here. Look at Ruxin as this kind of golden reddish, golden brown, I guess golden reddish, right? The Buddha is kind of like a sand red. The back wall is kind of like this brown. The floor is a brown. The railing to the very right is brown. There's brown in the carpet. So you have, you know, kind of gold. You have reds, browns, and I forget what the other color was. I don't know. I'm looking at it and I can't tell you. But they're very complementary. I can't stress this enough. When you're taking pictures, expose for the highlights and see what that does to your shadows. You know, you're going to start getting some really rich contrasts, whereas a lot of people take a picture with their phone and just let the camera decide where the exposure is, and you get flat pictures that way. Pictures that don't look good. So expose for the highlights. Make sure they don't blow out too much, and then you'll see how that affects your contrasts and how you get some beautiful stuff. Okay, here's another one of my dogs. This is Rockley. It is not broccoli with a B, it's Rockley, no B. what can I say? Just the light, the morning light coming in and hitting him, and he's enjoying it. Look at that face of his. Life couldn't be any better for this guy right now. And just really beautiful. I exposed for him. And the rest of the stuff falls off into darkness and shadow, except for some splashes, on the back wall, some splashes on the door. It's just really, really beautiful. And the last one, this was early on for me, and I was filming a commercial for a dental implant client. And they had these windows all around the lobby, huge windows, and of course the sun was streaming in, streaming in all day from these windows. So we had to shut these blinds the best we could. We didn't have budget to black things out, so we shut them as far as we could, and then worked with that from there. But we were on break, and I noticed my buddy Will sitting over here on his phone, and I thought, oh my God, look at that. I mean, look at that backlight, the very, very soft backlight coming in behind him, and the shadows on the floor in front of him. It's just really beautiful. I want to stress that the first part of this exercise is to notice light. To really notice it, to appreciate it, and see it where other people might not see it. A lot of people not in our field, they kind of go about their day. They might say, oh, it's a beautiful day, but they're not paying attention to how sunlight comes through a tree, through its leaves, and it's humid, so you see the rays of light coming down and hitting the ground under the tree, and the leaves are shaking and trembling in a wind, so the light is vibrating as it comes down to the ground. Take a picture of that. If your friend is talking to you and you notice the light in them looks amazing, say, hey, do you mind if I take a picture? Take a picture. So that's the first thing, is to notice light. The second part, which is also equally and incredibly important, is to understand why the light looks good in that picture. Is it a soft light? Is it a hard light? Is it a light coming from underneath someone? Is it coming from directly overhead? Is it coming from their side? Is it coming from a lamp, or is it coming from the sun? Is it coming from the moon? Is it a combination of things? And when you start to do that, you start to realize where you have to put lights to create the same kind of look. You can understand, do I have to diffuse my lights? Do I need a nice hard light to show on this person? And that's really it. Again, it's just being aware of the light around you in everyday situations, taking pictures and really studying the pictures. And that's going to help you in the long run. And I really don't have anything else to say about that. It's going to help you in the long run. And look, if you have any questions or you have pictures you want me to look at, please feel free to send them. I'll comment on them, make suggestions, and that's cool. And I hope I can help, okay? All right, bye-bye. Until next time, see you then.